Embark on the heart-racing drama of Revenza tales, where clever retorts and jaw-dropping betrayals take center stage. Subscribe now, give that like button a click, share with your pals, and leave a comment to join the battle for justice. Picture a brilliant present that conceals an evil trap, which threatens to destroy all you hold dear. This is the tale of Jennifer Davis, a dedicated mother whose ideal life in a Manhattan high-rise turned into a fight against a menacing conspiracy. Prepare for a story of lies and resistance that'll keep you on the edge of your seat till the last page. In the busy center of Manhattan in 2025, Jennifer Davis resided in a modern high-rise condominium with expansive city views. She was a 33-year-old freelance graphic designer, her auburn locks shining in the evening sun as she worked at her desk. Her office was neat but vibrant, with doodles tacked to a corkboard and a glowing tablet showing her current project. She devoted herself to raising her 8-year-old son, Ethan, who lay on the living room carpet, drawing spaceships. Their apartment, though pricey, was home after years of rebuilding following the divorce. But recently, there were odd times when Jennifer sensed that her own private sanctuary was disappearing. The front door swung open one night, and her husband, Brian Davis, walked in, his tie undone. "Hey, Jen," he greeted, his voice with a hint of fatigue. Jennifer turned, illuminating him with her warm smile. "Long day?" she asked, setting aside her work. Brian, who was 35 and worked as a sales manager in a large insurance company, collapsed on the couch. 3 client sessions and a mountain of reports, he complained, picking up a water bottle. "How's your project?" Jennifer smiled, displaying a colorful logo on her screen. "Almost finished. Should get it done tomorrow." Brian's consistent charm and good heart had captured her 6 years ago at a friend's party. Their relationship was solid, founded on common visions, including having more children one day. But there was one person who cast a shadow over their joy, Brian's mother, Margaret Thompson. "Oh, Mom called today," Brian mentioned lightly, not noticing Jennifer's slight frown. "She's doing something big for your birthday next week." Jennifer's smile grew strained, her stomach nodding. "That's nice of her," she said, her voice deliberately neutral. Margaret, a 58-year-old widow with a refined veneer, had lost her husband, Paul, 12 years ago. Her polished manners concealed a possessive side, and Brian, her sole child, was her universe. Margaret immediately treated Jennifer with under-the-surface hostility, her courteous words studded with veiled barbs. Jennifer felt the interloper who'd stolen Brian's allegiance, despite how hard she worked to belong. "Really wants to improve things with you," Brian said hopefully. "Perhaps this gift is an attempt at reconciliation." Jennifer nodded, her mind racing back to Margaret's previous gestures, backhanded compliments or excessively generous invitations that seemed to be traps. "I hope so," she said, holding her reservations for Brian's benefit. "What's the gift?" Brian shrugged, grinning. "She said it's a surprise, but it's something special." Jennifer's stomach turned over. Margaret's surprises always made her nervous. She maintained her poise, not wanting to temper Brian's enthusiasm. The next week, Jennifer's birthday came around, and their apartment throbbed with friends and relatives for an affectionate celebration. Surrounded by smiles, Jennifer was rooted, though Margaret's arrival weighed heavily in her thoughts. At 4 p.m., the doorbell rang, and Brian opened it to find Margaret, silver hair immaculate, wearing a stylish blazer. She walked as royalty to a humble abode. "Happy to be here," Margaret said, embracing Brian warmly. She smiled at Jennifer, her smile strained. "Happy birthday, Jennifer." Her hasty peck on Jennifer's cheek bore the pungent odor of lavender perfume. "Thanks, Margaret," Jennifer said, her own smile professional but wary. Margaret rang out a clap with her hands, her voice loud with command. "Everyone, come outside. I have a surprise gift for Jennifer that you won't believe." Intrigued, the guests followed her to the street, where a gleaming black Mercedes-Benz S-Class sat beneath the city's streetlights. Jennifer's breath froze. The car was beautiful, but a shiver ran down her back. It seemed a power move, not a gift. "Like it?" Margaret said with a saccharine tone as she held out the keys. "It's the new model, special ordered for you." The onlookers buzzed in wonder, taking pictures, their enthusiasm charged. "It's incredible," Jennifer lied, trying to sound excited when she wasn't. "Thank you." Brian's face brightened, his arm around Margaret. "This is amazing, Mom." "Jen, isn't it great?" Jennifer nodded, staring at the car, its gleam a warning. "It's something else," she said, her tone truthful but weighed down. A week later, Jennifer pulled her trusty sedan into the building's garage and looked at the still-wrapped Mercedes. Its black paint gleamed like a black omen in the low light. Brian had questioned why she hadn't used it, and she'd sidestepped with excuses, "I prefer my car," or "It's such a change." She couldn't speak her true fear. Margaret's motives weren't good. Shopping bags in hand, Jennifer made her way to the elevator, her mind weighed down. In her own apartment, Jennifer played back a voicemail from Brian, "Late night with clients, Jen. Love you, be home soon." Jennifer watched alone from her window at the Mercedes, her imagination aflame. This was her time to probe. She took the keys and slipped into the garage, looking for cameras to be stealthy. In the Mercedes, the leather aroma was thick, the dashboard shining with state-of-the-art controls. It all screamed luxury, but something did not feel right. She turned the key, and a low, unsmooth rattle vibrated through the vehicle. The steering wheel trembled in her hands, faint but misplaced. Jennifer frowned. This wasn't the smooth purr of a new luxury car. "Maybe I'm imagining it," she muttered, but doubt gnawed at her. She opened the navigation system and froze. A user profile was set, Margaret Thompson. "Why is her name here?" Jennifer whispered, her pulse racing. The history showed Margaret's address, their apartment, and high-end stores. Digging deeper, she found an active tracking feature linked to Margaret's phone, sending real-time location data. Her hands trembled as she discovered a recording mode, programmed to record all the dialogue and forward it to Margaret. "This is crazy," Jennifer panted, her heart racing. Margaret was monitoring them. She opened the glove box and took out the car manual. It had defined the S-Class engine as quiet, vibration-free. The rattle was the issue. Jennifer accessed forums on her phone, discovering messages of engine problems indicating grave dangers. Verifying the vehicle information on the dashboard, she noticed the vehicle was sold 9 months prior, not brand new. Her heart fell. She wrote down the VIN and ordered an online vehicle history report for a payment. The reality slapped her hard. The vehicle was previously owned, with a bad accident history. There was a highway accident that wrecked the front end, and the repairs made the engine unstable, dangerous for high-speed motoring. Jennifer's hands were shaking as she saved the report. Margaret had left her with a deadly car, wired to keep her under constant surveillance. If she or Ethan drove it, they might get into an accident. She cut off the engine, the garage's chilly air enveloping her as she exited. In the apartment, Jennifer paced, gripping the proof. How could she tell Brian, who cherished his mother? Would he believe her? Her determination strengthened. She'd defend her family and reveal Margaret's trick. Jennifer was seated at her kitchen table, the vehicle history report and screenshots of the Mercedes surveillance settings spread out like a puzzle. Her fingers trembled as she arranged the photos, each one evidence of Margaret's dishonesty. She'd taken the dashboard's tracking and recording features, the name Margaret glaring on the screen. That evening, in their high-rise building, Jennifer slept fitfully, the city hum outside her window. The black Mercedes parked below seemed a menacing presence, threatening her family's well-being. She must safeguard Brian and Ethan, but she couldn't accuse Margaret and shatter Brian's heart. Her thoughts tumbled. Was it merely Margaret's control issue, or something sinister? By the break of dawn, Jennifer's resolve was set. She'd outsmart Margaret without destroying her marriage. On a still Sunday morning, Brian stood at the window, coffee cup clutched in his hand, gazing out at the Mercedes in the parking lot. The morning sun heightened its black finish to a glistening polish. He drank slowly, forehead furrowed in contemplation. "Jen, it's odd," he said, turning to her on the couch. "That car's been parked there for weeks, and you haven't taken it for a spin once." Jennifer shut her laptop, her heart pounding as she chose her words. "I'm still adjusting to it," she said calmly, but tense. Brian sat next to her, his eyes worried. Mom keeps calling, inquiring whether you like the car. She's concerned you're not content. Jennifer clutched her mug tighter, the warmth soothing her nerves. For days, she'd struggled to break the news of Margaret's betrayal without hurting Brian. The evidence was clear: the car's accident history, the faulty engine, the spying tech. But Brian's love for his mother made the truth a minefield. Margaret probably assumes I'm thrilled, Jennifer said, forcing a smile. Brian leaned closer, his voice soft. But you're not, are you? You've been on edge, especially about Mom. What's wrong? Jennifer's jaw tightened, her pulse quickening. She couldn't hide it anymore. Brian, the car's not right, she said, her voice steady. It's a problem. Brian's eyes narrowed, confused. What kind of problem? It's not what it seems, Jennifer said, standing. Come to the garage. I'll show you. They rode the elevator down in heavy silence, Jennifer's heart pounding like a drum. She knew this could change Brian's view of his mother forever. In the dim parking lot, the Mercedes loomed, its black surface reflecting the overhead lights. Jennifer handed Brian the keys, her voice firm despite her nerves. Get in and take a look for yourself. Brian, his expression doubtful, got into the driver's seat, Jennifer alongside. What am I to be checking? He asked, his voice wary. Turn the engine over, Jennifer instructed, her eyes on him. Brian turned the key, and the engine coughed with a jagged, unsteady rumble. He wasn't a car person, but his work had him in enough luxury cars to recognize this wasn't right. His brow creased as he clutched the wheel, sensing a slight vibration. This isn't right, he said, his tone troubled. It's not, Jennifer replied. A brand new Mercedes should be quiet, smooth. This isn't right. Brian's scowl increased, his grip tightening. Mom told me it was new, custom ordered. Jennifer produced her phone and opened the vehicle history report. See this, she handed him over. Brian's eyes read the screen, his face blanching, his breathing short. 9 months ago, it was sold, he whispered, his voice shaking. It's used, with a significant crash history. Jennifer nodded softly but firmly. The engine wasn't repaired well. It's risky for long road trips. Brian looked at the report, his hands quivering. How is this possible? There's something else, Jennifer said, her heart pounding as she tapped on the navigation settings on the dashboard. The screen displayed Margaret's profile, tracking and recording on. She quickly shut down those features. Brian's eyes went wide, his voice catching. This is a surveillance system? Yes, Jennifer replied, her voice unshaken. It records our conversations and transmits them to Margaret's phone. It monitors our location, too. Brian's hands fell to his lap, his eyes on the dashboard. Why would Mom do this? He whispered, his voice cracking. Jennifer's touch was warm as she took his hand. I don't want to blame her, Brian, but this was set up. She gave us a dodgy car and rigged it up to spy on us. Brian's face stiffened, anger burning in his eyes. This is not right, he growled, voice low. I don't believe she lied to us like that. I don't know why, Jennifer replied truthfully, but it's not safe, and our privacy's been violated. We need a professional to scan it. Brian killed the engine, the silence oppressive. Let's take it to a repair shop tomorrow, he instructed, his voice resolute. And we keep this from Mom for now. As they headed for the elevator, Brian stopped, his gaze scanning Jennifer's. How long have you known? A few days, she confessed, her voice gentle. I was afraid to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you or your relationship with her. Brian placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm. You did the right thing. This is difficult, but I had to know. As they rode in the elevator, he gazed at the floor, his voice low. Mom's always been protective, maybe too much. She had notions about who I should marry, but I chose you, Jen. I don't regret it. Jennifer clamped his hand hard, her heart heavy but resilient. We'll get through this together. At home, Brian phoned a trusted garage, Empire Auto Care. "Can you inspect a car tomorrow morning?" he asked, his voice biting. "We're concerned about its safety." He hung up, turning to Jennifer with a doleful smile. "I'm glad you didn't drive it. If something had happened to you or Ethan." Jennifer rested her head on his shoulder. "What's next?" "First, we verify the car's problems," Brian stated, his voice firm. "Then we determine how to handle Mom." The room was lit by the city lights, the Mercedes in the darkness a reminder of Margaret's ruse. The following morning, they drove the Mercedes to Empire Auto Care, their own nerves on edge. The shop, located on a hectic Manhattan corner, was reputed for straight-up work. The car engine rattled more loudly in the morning stillness, making Jennifer's teeth on edge. A middle-aged man with a soothing manner met them. "I'm Jim Larson, shop owner," he replied, shaking their hands. "You called about the car?" "I'm Brian Davis, and this is my wife, Jennifer," said Brian, tensing his voice. "We want to know if it's safe and if it's really new." Jim nodded, his eyes keen. "What's it doing?" "The engine's off," replied Jennifer, her voice hurried. "And we were told it's new, but we're not sure." Jim raised an eyebrow but set to work. "I'll run a full check and inspect the engine. Wait here." Jennifer and Brian sat in the shop's small office, the clank of tools filling the air. Brian stared out the window, his voice low. "I can't believe Mom would risk your safety like this." Jennifer touched his arm, her voice soft. "Let's wait for Jim's report. We need the full picture." An hour later, Jim returned, his face serious, holding a thick report. "This isn't good," he said, sitting down. "The car's not new, built 10 months ago, sold used." Brian leaned forward, his jaw tight. "And the engine?" Jim sighed, sliding the report over. "It's bad. The engine mounts are cheap, and critical parts aren't original. It could fail on long drives or at high speeds." Jennifer's stomach sank, her fears confirmed. "Could that cause a crash?" "Definitely," Jim said, his tone grave. "If it dies on a highway, you're in trouble." Brian went white, his fists clenching. "There's more," Jim said, drawing out another page. "I discovered a surveillance device built into the navigation system. It's not standard, it's advanced. Someone installed it on purpose." Jennifer's heart was beating rapidly as she looked at Brian. "So it's intentional?" "No question," Jim said, nodding. "This is not dealer work. Someone paid for this installation." Brian's face was darkening, anger and betrayal in his eyes. "Can you document this?" he asked, his tone icy. "Everything, the surveillance, the engine?" Jim nodded, smiling kindly. "You will have your full report tonight." As they departed, Jennifer's fire was lit within her. Margaret's present was a strategic attempt to manipulate and risk them. In their own home, Brian and Jennifer sat together at their table, report in the middle. "We can't let this pass," Brian's voice was fierce. "We need a plan to fight Mom before she spins it." Jennifer nodded, thinking furiously. "We have the proof, pics, screens, Jim's report. But we need her to say so herself." Brian's eyes flashed. "What if we get her to confess by tricking her?" Jennifer's heart pounded, a plan taking shape. "We can invite her in, pretend we're thankful, and inquire about the car's features on camera." Brian paused, then nodded. "That's clever. But we need to get more out of her to get her to slip." "Rachel understands privacy law," she said. "She could assist us legally using this evidence, maybe intimidate Margaret into speaking." Brian's jaw clenched, his voice hard. "Let's speak with Rachel tonight. If Mom is spying, we'll catch her in her own trap." Jim Larson handed Brian the diagnostic report, his voice calm. "Leave the car here until you know what to do. It's too dangerous to drive." Brian nodded, his face strained, as he handed Jim the keys. In the elevator back to their apartment, Brian's fist hit the wall, his voice raw. "Why would Mom do this to us? Anger and pain flashed in his eyes as he turned to Jennifer. She hugged him tightly, her heart heavy for his hurt. "I don't know, Brian," she said softly, holding him close. "But we'll face this together." Brian's voice grew firm. "I'm seeing her today. This ends now." Jennifer and Brian drove to Margaret's upscale penthouse in Manhattan that afternoon, the city towers throwing long shadows. Brian held the wheel of their worn car, his silence heavy with betrayal. Jennifer remained silent, her nerves humming, aware this confrontation could alter everything. At Margaret's building, a doorman in a sharp, business suit bid them welcome. "Mr. and Mrs. Davis, nice to see you," he exclaimed with a warm smile. "Shall I call Mrs. Thompson?" "No, it's a surprise," Brian replied, his smile forced. "She'll love seeing us." The ride up to the penthouse in the elevator seemed interminable, the soft hum heightening their tension. Brian pressed the doorbell, his expression carved of stone. Margaret answered the door, her silver hair immaculate, her tailored suit flawless. "Brian." "Jennifer." "What a treat," she greeted them, her voice chirpy but her eyes guarded. Her smile dissolved as she took in their stern expressions. "Is something wrong?" "We have to talk," Brian said, his voice icy. "Inside." Margaret's face stiffened, but she ushered them into her stately living room, all lush sofas and glittering city views. "Coffee?" she asked, her voice too sweet. "No," Jennifer replied, her eyes on Margaret. Brian dumped Jim's report on the marble coffee table. "This concerns the car you gave Jennifer," he said, his voice firm but pointed. Margaret's smile was still in place, but her hands twitched. "That lovely car? Is Jennifer enjoying it?" "You told me it was new," Brian accused, glaring at her. "The newest model, ordered custom." Margaret nodded again, her eyes wide with pretended innocence. "Of course, dear. I purchased it from a premier dealer." Brian set the report in front of her, his voice shaking with rage. "That's not true. It's used, with a crash record. The engine may fail and lead to an accident." Margaret's face stiffened, her lips slightly apart. "That can't be so," she said, her voice rigid. "There's been a mix-up." Jennifer leaned forward, speaking quietly but firmly. "No mix-up. The car has surveillance equipment, programmed to record our words and follow us around, all tied into your phone." Margaret went pale, a flush spreading up her cheeks. "That's nonsense," she snapped, rising. "I just wanted to give a nice gift." Brian rose, standing over her. "Stop lying, Mom," he said, holding up screenshots and records of purchases. "You purchased it used from a shady dealer. You had the surveillance equipment installed after fixing it." Margaret sat back down on the couch, shaking, her eyes flicking between them. For a second, there was silence in the room. Then a cold tone crept over her eyes. "You need someone better, Brian," she said, her tone biting. "She's not good enough for you. She's manipulating you against me." Brian's face reddened, his voice thundering. "Jennifer's my wife. You gave her a car that might have killed her or Ethan." Margaret's lips twisted, her voice cold. "It's not so bad. It has faults, but it is safe enough." "Safe enough?" Jennifer cried. "The mechanic told us it might crash on the highway." Margaret shrugged, her eyes narrowing. "I hoped it would frighten you out of claiming it. Then Brian could drive it, and I'd know he was safe." A heavy silence dropped. Brian stared at her, his voice low. "You wanted to scare Jennifer? Maybe hurt her?" Margaret's gaze hardened, unapologetic. "I didn't want anyone hurt. I just wanted her out, maybe rattled enough to leave." Jennifer's heart raced, her hands clenching. "You risked my life, Ethan's life, for control?" Margaret's eyes flicked to her, dismissive. "It was for Brian's sake." Brian's voice broke, raw with betrayal. "We're done, Mom. This is the end." Margaret shot to her feet, her voice desperate. "Brian, I'm your mother. You'd pick her over me?" "Jennifer's my family," Brian said, his voice firm. You tried to harm her. We're through. Margaret's face twisted, her voice venomous. You'll regret this. She's not worth it. Brian took Jennifer's hand, his grip tight. Goodbye, Mom. Talk to us through our lawyer. As they turned to leave, Margaret's voice rang out. I was protecting you, Brian. But Brian kept walking, leading Jennifer to the elevator. As the doors shut, he breathed out, his shoulders slumping. It's over, he said, wearily. Jennifer leaned against him, voice gentle. Are you okay? No, Brian admitted, eyes prickling with tears. But we'll be fine. Together. A year on, Jennifer and Brian sat in the backyard of their new suburban home, a snug house with a garden full of flowers. Morning sunlight warmed the grass, birds singing as they ate breakfast together. Jennifer, 8 months pregnant, smiled as Brian topped off her coffee. Feel her kicking, she said, taking his hand to her belly. Brian smiled, sensing tiny kicks. She's strong, like you. Their lives were utterly transformed since confronting Margaret. Brian began therapy to sort through his mother's manipulation, learning to establish firm boundaries. They'd moved 6 months ago from their Manhattan high-rise to a quiet home where Ethan could run free. Jennifer kept up her design work, her new office overlooking blooming roses. Brian still worked in insurance but came home early to prep the nursery. The mint green walls are perfect, Jennifer said, sipping coffee. Our daughter's room is going to shine. Brian nodded, eating toast. I'll finish the crib tonight. The phone buzzed, and Brian's face tensed as he checked it. It's Mom, he said quietly. Jennifer's heart skipped, but she stayed calm. Brian had limited contact to monthly calls, following his therapist's advice. He answered, his tone guarded, then hung up after a brief talk. She wants to send a baby gift, he said, his expression wary. Jennifer raised an eyebrow, cautious. That's kind of her. Brian took her hand, his voice firm. I told her I'd check anything she sends. No more games. Jennifer nodded, her trust in him solid. Margaret had softened slightly since learning about the baby, but Jennifer stayed wary. I know you'll keep us safe, she said, squeezing his hand. Brian smiled, his eyes warm. We're a family. Nothing breaks us. The sun rose higher, casting a hopeful glow over their new chapter. Margaret's shadow lingered, but Jennifer and Brian moved forward, their daughter's arrival a bright promise. Thanks for reading with us on Revenza Tales, this action-packed story of betrayal turned triumph. Subscribe, like, share, and comment to keep the epic revenge tales going. Moral: never brush off your gut when a gift doesn't feel right, defend your family and get to the bottom of things.